Right now, it's just so funny because it just seems like I'm having the hardest time just being able to get back to work. I just want to work. Well, hey everybody, thank you for showing up again for me. Of course, Cubicles, the conduit, old man's journey to journeyman. And first off, I really appreciate you all for showing up again. Want to put that out there. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for the comments. Great community that we have here. And I just appreciate once again every one of you. So you saw the first part of that. I just want to work, right? I have not been able to attain a contract yet. So as many of you know, if you remember watching on my other videos, the IEC is a school that I go to. They do require you to have one of the member contracts there, at which point you work while you earn while you learn. And as y'all know, I was laid off from that first contract, and I have not been able to garner a new contract since then. I've been doing some temporary contract work in the meantime, but it is not the official school, or I should say an official contractor from the IEC, so therefore I'm in the danger zone big time. Now, I do believe that there's some reasons behind that. We'll get into those as we go here. I do want to first talk about, there are things, because I want to preface this with, I know that everybody's region might be different. Before I get into any of this, like I said, everybody's region, their cities, where you're coming from may be different. What you're dealing with might be different. Me being in the DFW area, this is what I'm experiencing. So I want to talk about what I'm hearing that might be the issue, what I'm doing in the meantime to try to drum up some sort of help for a contract. Hopefully this is something that'll help out the other apprentices that are out there that are maybe having trouble and trying to attain some sort of actual contract apprenticeship work. One of the things that I'm being told that's happening that is making it more difficult for me to receive, for me to get into an apprenticeship, is basically that there just aren't enough journeymen to train up the apprentices that are coming along. There are a lot of apprentices, and I'll show you from one of my recent outings to what's basically a career fair for apprentices. Now, these apprentices, the majority of them already have contracts. This is from my school at IEC. They had a festival so that we could go out and see the different vendors. There's a few contractors out there as well who I touched base with. Now, if you see this group, this is a lot of young men, and they are young men. I think I was probably one of the oldest people there. I can guarantee you, I was probably 2% of the older people out of this 98 that were there. Majority of those young guys, they actually do have member contracts, but as you can see, it's just a lot of them. You can see there's this line that I'm showing here, this line of guys. It may look kind of sparse around the sides, but that's a long line of at least 300, 400 kids, that are standing. Maybe not so many, but maybe 200, 300 kids that are, these young guys that are in that line. So you can imagine that they've got more apprentices than they have journeymen, which is making this difficult. So you can only have so many journeymen that train, or I should say, you can only have so many apprentices that can train under journeymen. So I think it's 3 to every 1 journeyman that you can actually train up. And so it's, from my understanding and what I've been told out there from the different contractors that I keep trying to contact, is that that's one of the problems. They just don't have enough journeymen. Now, earlier when you saw me in the car there, the very first part where I was talking about I just don't want to work, I was actually I took it's about a 70-mile trip over to about 3 different contractors, Cummings, CEC, and OWL. I was told to not only put in a job application, send an email, make a phone call, but to also show up at those offices. Now, corporate folks know, those of you in the corporate world, heck, those of you who are not in the corporate world, you normally don't show up to these offices unless you have an interview, unless they told you to come in. Well, I was told by my advisor that is not what you should do. You need to, go ahead and do that, the beginning work of application and so forth, and then you show up there, just show up. So that was an interesting situation in itself. I'll go back to that another time, maybe kind of intersperse it here. But that was what I did. And that is something that is going to be necessary, I believe, going forward. One of the specific issues that appears to be going on as well is that these journeymen are needing people that at least have enough experience to they're not just starting from scratch. When you have so few journeymen, they've got to kind of get the top, they got to get the best of the crop. And they got to get at least young men who aren't just just from the beginning, gets completely wet behind the ears, like totally, okay? Old men as well that are not just completely wet behind the ears. I want you all to take a look at a clip from a YouTube channel of a guy by the name of Jersey Mike that I was looking at, that I found, and he really brings this home. So I want you to take a look at that now.
High schools. Not everybody grows up in a household with blue collar guys. I mean, dad is a plumber, uncle's an electrician, both are backyard car mechanics. I mean, not everybody grows up like that. So those high school shops, those vocational high school programs were the means by which a lot of people gained their mechanical aptitude, the ability to work with tools and all that stuff. And that's pretty much gone now. They do decide to get into the trades. They end up going to a trade school program, and a lot of these programs are not focusing on hands-on training as much as they used to. I mean, they never did much before, but now it's almost non-existent. I mean, that's what a lot of guys are telling me anyway, and I could see it. So not only do we have a lot of people coming into the trades without mechanical skills, we have these trade schools themselves that are not teaching it. And so these people make it all the way to their first day on the job without having any mechanical aptitude at all. And I'm not talking about brazing and things like that. I'm talking about the absolute basics, like lefty loosey, righty tighty. That's where I'm starting with a lot of guys these days. And I think that's why a lot of guys are coming into this trade with very low pay, is because these 6-month, 12-month trade school programs, it's not enough time to really make somebody proficient at diagnostics. It takes a couple of years to learn that. So coming straight out of school as a diagnostic technician, it's not likely for most people. At the same time, you got these schools not really focusing on the hands-on skills either. So they're not useful to employers on the diagnostic side. They're not useful to employers on the mechanical side. And so all you really end up with are these bodies that are good for pretty much just manual labor. So this pipeline, how we bring people into trades to begin with, I think is a real mess. And it doesn't help with the transition from school to the field, because it's not a classroom anymore. It's a business out there. And a lot of guys that know what they're doing, because they don't have enough help, they're under a tremendous amount of time pressure to get these jobs done. So to train means to really slow things down and add to that pressure. Helpers also aren't exactly helping themselves either. When an experienced guy has a helper, he knows he's starting from absolute scratch with these guys, and these helpers are not taking it upon themselves to read manuals, watch videos, whatever it is. You have a monumental task in training these guys, and if they're just standing around waiting for you to grab them by the hand and fill in a blank canvas, it's an overwhelming task a lot of guys are not going to want to take on. So these guys are constantly complaining they're not getting training, when sometimes the problem is that they're not showing enough initiative to make it worth anybody's while.
So with kind of putting that information together, what I'm seeing is twofold. So on the one hand, you do have a shortage of journeymen to teach the apprentices. So you only have so many, like we talked about, you can only have so many apprentices assigned to a journeyman for them to mentor, for them to train. And then the other side, like Jersey Mike is talking about, is more or less the quality of those apprentices is going to have to be a bit higher, because you're looking at a situation where, like you said, they've got to finish these jobs quickly. Many times they're starting from scratch, much like I talked about in my first videos. Like, he's talking about as bad as righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? So it makes sense that it may be difficult for me to get into a new contract because of those factors. Now, I'm not going to stop. So let me get back to what we were talking about before, as to what's been explained to me, to really put myself out there. Once again, corporate world is not like this at all. It's scary to go to these corporations, these larger electrical contractors, because you're walking into large, pretty buildings. And in my instance, I decided to go in my regular clothes, right? In my construction clothes. I'm wondering if I should have probably dressed up for this, because I think they were kind of looking at me like, why did you come here like this? So I came dressed up like I thought that, the job that I wanted kind of thing, which is, not necessarily, I don't think I did well with that one. That was maybe not the best idea, but it was a learning experience. And like I said to you earlier, making the phone call, sending out the email, making sure that you're showing up in front of them, finding out who that recruiter is, making sure that you show up at those offices, hopefully better dressed, but showing up at those offices with resume in hand so they can see your face and they say, look, this guy is trying. He wants in. Now, will that make a difference when we're talking about the amount of skill that they're really looking for their apprentices to have right now? Since you've got so many apprentices and so few journeymen, that I can't answer. That's something that the companies, kind of the trend, what they're looking for, that's going to have to dictate that. When the next contract does come along, I'm going to have to be on my toes, because the younger guys that are there, and even older, if there are older folks there, if they're on top of it, maybe they've been taught those things early on, then they're going to have they're going to have the advantage. So that bottleneck is happening that I can see, and it is definitely, right now, it has been difficult, at least in my region, to be able to find something. I'm not done. I'm going to keep doing what I was told to do, no matter how much it flies in the face of what I've been taught in the corporate world. We're going to keep going that direction. And I don't want anybody, this is not something to make people feel discouraged by this at all. I'm not discouraged at all. What I do know is that I am going to need, like Jersey Mike was talking about, I am going to have to show that initiative. I'm going to have to really bear down on my concepts, my math, learn, make sure that I'm very clear. And I'm going to have to find these opportunities for the hands-on part of this. If you're not in a contract, or if you're not having that hands-on portion of this, well, then you're not able to practice that skill. And so when you do get into that contract, you're still behind. I'm behind these young men and women that are in class, but also in contracts. So, and doing the work on a daily basis. I can't tell you how many right now, how I'm in class, and these kids are coming back from their jobs that they've been working their butts off at. And here I am, in an online class, for that matter, just kind of listening to them talk about what they've done and what sort of work they've done. Fantastic work these young people are doing. It's just I'm amazed at how quickly they've picked this up, and just their abilities all together. I don't think these young folks are going to have a problem in the world in the trades if that's where they choose to go, because I am completely impressed, like I said, with these kids that I'm in those classes with. So I just wanted to let everybody kind of know about where I'm at right now. This is it. It's very challenging. I have had to suck it up, and for a short period, I got a temporary, desk contract job, because I'm going to need some sort of income in the meantime, so that I can continue trying to get to that place where I can get one of these contracts. The next year, I can go into that new semester. I'm also going to look into the IBEW. They start their next enrollment of guys as well for the union next year as well, from my understanding. And it's another area I'm going to have to look at. But in the meantime, I've got to make it. I've got to get what I can get now, so that I can continue. I've got my books. I can go ahead and get my training and everything. But at this point in time, I've got to be able to either get a contract in the next couple of days before this new temporary desk role starts, or I'm gonna have to just go forward with it and get what I can in the meantime for Christmas and so forth. Like I said, I just wanted to give you all an update, because I really appreciate you all being in my corner, and I have to be honest with you all about what's happening. That's the whole point in this. It's for me to be real with y'all, and to just to show here, this is how it's going. This is some of the ups and downs of pursuing this career. So, send me comments, subscribe, like, hit your notifications, all that. There's a couple other things that I wanted to touch on a bit more. A lot of comments that you all have made that I want to answer to, that I want to make some other videos about those, while I'm still trying to get get my feet wet some more in this world. So once again, I really appreciate you all. Thanks again. I'll talk to y'all soon.